Welcome to the KBB Review podcast. I'm Andy Davis as always, and in this last episode of season 17, we've got another big interview for you. And in kitchen retail, it doesn't get much bigger than Magnet. It was founded by Tom Duxbury in 1918 as a joinery business in Bingley in Yorkshire, and Tom named the whole thing after his horse. Yeah, one of the most famous brands in kitchens was named after a horse. Brilliant. As many of you will have been following, Magnet has been going through a real turnaround in the last few years, following a prolonged period of declining numbers and an unwieldy estate of underperforming stores. However, it does have that enviable brand equity. Let's be honest, everyone's heard of Magnet, and the turnaround does seem to have been working under former MD George Dymond. Now, Dymond stepped down in October of last year, and former commercial and customer director Sophie Rose replaced him, just in time to steer the whole thing through the sale from parent company Nobia to new owner Alteri Partners. That sale put Magnet back under British ownership, and as we will hear in a moment, it also puts it firmly back in control of its own destiny. So here is my KBB Review colleague George Dymond in conversation with Sophie Rose, and it's a really interesting insight into plans, outlook, the old chestnut of the never-ending sale, and what role Magnet could and should be playing in the wider kitchen retail industry. It is genuinely fascinating stuff from one of the biggest names in kitchens, so it's definitely worth a listen all the way to the end. Now over to you, George.
Firstly, thank you so much for being here today with us, Sophie.
Thank you for having me.
So I thought what we could do to start with is, for anyone who hasn't been following the Magnet story as closely as you or I, is maybe could you just give me the quick whistle-stop tour of your career history up till this point?
Yeah, of course. So my background and my career history over kind of the last 15 years is leadership in retail in the kind of customer and commercial space. So very much around the customer proposition, which does remain an incredible passion of mine. The last 15 years actually prior to joining Magnet in the health and beauty sector. So the last 2 years have been new and a learning journey for me in the kitchen sector, but one I've thoroughly enjoyed. And I joined Magnet as the customer and commercial director, and 3 months ago stepped up to lead the business when George departed.
How have you found those first couple of months? I mean, obviously you had Christmas in the middle when I imagine everything closes down. So that must have been quite a nice break for you immediately after that. But apart from that, how have you been finding things?
It's been a really exciting few months, a lot happening, but there's a huge amount of positivity across the business. I suppose because I've had the privilege of being part of the journey for the last 2 years, I already know what a fantastic business this is. I already know how much talent and passion we have across our people. But I have spent a lot of the last 3 months getting out there with our stores, our manufacturing and supply chain teams, speaking with our partners, speaking with our customers. And there is a real sense of energy and confidence about what we're doing and where we're going. I think the business has made real progress as well, over the past year. So it's really a great opportunity and time to step up and lead and build on that momentum. We've had some really strong recent highlights, that we're incredibly proud of. We've just launched our new brand marketing campaign called Closer, and that has marked the return to TV for the first time in several years for Magnet. We continue to make investments in our showrooms, and in B2B, the return to the public sector, where we do have a long-standing heritage and trust, has been a real highlight of recent months. And then I suppose we can't really ignore what's also been going on over the last few months and the recent change of our ownership news, which for us is just a really strong endorsement of the direction we're on. And, it's great that we have backing to now accelerate what we know is already working. So very exciting, very busy few months.
So obviously most people listening to this will have been following everything that's been going on with Magnet and will have heard about how it was recently acquired by Alteri Partners. But on a broad level, obviously that's a huge change for Magnet, finally coming back into UK ownership again. But what are some of your top priorities at this point? You have basically essentially brand new owners, and you sort of have, from the sounds of things, a little bit more control of your own destiny.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, for me, it's always about our people. As I said, we've got brilliant talent across the business, and it is a key priority of ours to continue to build on that capability and really strengthen the leadership and support our colleagues to deliver at their best. We all know, and many leaders will concur, when a team feels confident, feels supported, we drive an outstanding customer experience and the experience that we really strive for. So alongside that, we are focused on delivering great service and quality for our customers and building that trust through every step of the journey with our customers. And we know when we get those things right, profitable growth is ultimately the output.
But I suppose especially a brand like Magnet that has such a heritage in the UK, you're not a new business to this sector at all. You know what success looks like, and I suppose that's just what you're aiming for now, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely that. And I think really, you know, on top of that, on top of the people and the service and really striving for excellence in the experience for our customers, you know, there's probably a few other key call out from a priorities perspective. So our store estate does remain a big priority. You have seen us make investments over the last year. We will continue to invest in the right formats, most importantly in the right locations as well, and making sure that every footprint, every showroom we land is delivering the best possible experience. And then from a B2B perspective, and we often get asked this question, you know, it truly does remain a core part of our growth plans. We see a real opportunity in sectors like social housing, residential development, where we have a strong track record, and the scale of our UK manufacturing, our service capability really enables us to grow long-term partnerships in that space. And so, you know, again, marking that real return back to the public sector is a key milestone for us, and we will continue to see growth there.
Touching on the manufacturing there, I'm assuming you still have the absolutely massive manufacturing site in Darlington.
We do. It is an impressive site. I call it the Darlington experience whenever anyone comes to visit.
Yeah, to be fair, that's a really good name as well, actually. I would love to be described as the something experience, or for a place to be described as that.
When we take people around Darlington, you know, I always say we should sell tickets for this. You really get the true care, the true passion, the energy, you know, the finer details, the attention that goes into quality. You get all of that through that tour. So maybe one day we will start selling tickets, but it is a true experience.
So obviously looking at the market now in general, Magnet is one of a very small handful now of huge national companies like, you know, Howdens and Wren and B&Q sort of still fall into that bracket. But in your own words, where does that sort of sit in that national sector? What would you say sets Magnet apart from the likes of Wren and Howdens?
I think Magnet sits in a really strong position in the market. We believe we're a specialist kitchen brand with national scale. And we obviously are backed by UK manufacturing, and let's not ignore the fact decades of experience that others in the sector do not have. I think that combination is increasingly important in a market where customers need that confidence and reassurance in quality and accountability of their dream from start to finish. It's clearly a very crowded sector, but we are clear on our why Magnet. In its trusted expertise, a strong product offer, and the ability to deliver consistently with scale across retail, trade and B2B. And I think it's that mix that is a real differentiator for us, combining that specialist design and service for homeowners with the reliability and partnership approach needed to deliver for trade customers and larger projects. Our commitment to quality, I think, is another key point that differentiates us. Our cabinets are backed with a lifetime guarantee, which very few competitors can match in the market. And I don't know whether you saw recently, we were recognised with the Manufacturing Guild Mark, so a national mark of excellence in British manufacturing. And that does really reflect the rigorous standards across our design, materials, sustainability and overall performance.
What strikes me compared to Magnet's sort of national direct competitors is I feel like in the past, Magnet's always been positioned as an ever so slightly more premium offering. And I don't want to get shot for saying that by some of these other companies, but to me, that's what it always seemed like Magnet was going for.
Yeah. And look, we are focused on value for money, and that's really important. It is absolutely about ensuring the best quality, the best service, the best design standards, the best products at affordable prices. And that for us is where I think we are unique in the market, and we can stand by quality, you know, and the accreditations. We can stand behind our design credentials. You know, this year we've won multiple wins again in Ideal Home Awards. So, you know, we have a lot to kind of back this up and reinforce that.
Obviously, it seems like Magnet's looking to grow at the moment, and you've clearly implemented this very well considered turnaround plan over the last couple of years. But obviously that relies on you taking a slice of the market. So where do you think that's going to come from? Is it going to be the other big nationals like, you know, Wren and Howdens, or is that going to be independents?
I suppose because of the breadth of our business, we don't really look at it as taking share from one single competitor. I think the opportunity for us is much broader than that. customers want that reassurance, as I said, that quality and that end-to-end experience in a market like this. And I don't think everyone is delivering that consistently at the minute. So we see growth probably coming from a few areas. I think first, continuing to win more customers who are already considering those national specialists like Wren, where, brand confidence, service and proposition clarity really matter. Offering the right mix of choice at the right price points, as I said earlier, it's that kind of value for money is especially important in the current market. I think the second kind of key area, there's definitely an opportunity to take share from what is a very fragmented independent market. And particularly where customers want, again, that reassurance of scale, those stronger guarantees and a more joined up experience from design through to installation. And then I think thirdly, B2B and trade remain a core part of our growth plans. We are being very targeted about where we can win and win share here, particularly through partnerships in areas like social housing. Magnet has a strong heritage, as I said earlier, in that space. And we are gaining good traction because of our service, our reliability and our delivery at scale, which really matters in those type of sectors. And I suppose just probably a final point and kind of a nod to kind of some of the consolidation that's happening across the market. I think the recent news around Moore's Furniture Group is a reminder of just how tough conditions have been, but it can create opportunities for trusted established brands like ourselves with a proven track record, particularly within that kind of longer term contract work.
Yeah, because I think it's quite easy for a lot of people who just maybe know Magnet through the showroom in their local town to forget actually the scale that your company has. And like you said, it's roots in B2B and with social housing and things like that. So I do think it's important to remember for people who just look at how companies are doing and things like that actually Magnet is a massive sprawling beast of a company, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's that ability to scale across all those sectors, which, and we have been doing that for over 100 years. It does truly set us apart.
Obviously, again, most people listening to this will know that Magnet has been in the middle of a pretty major turnaround for the last couple of years. And I was really lucky to get to speak with your predecessor, George Dymond, about that, where he sort of broke down a little bit about what the company was doing. And most of it hinged on this move to what he called an asset light model, which I guess was summed up by maybe looking at all the stores, especially the ones up for lease renewal, and maybe going, can we maybe move that within the local area to maybe a smaller format, if that's what people are looking for, on high streets and things like that. So are we likely to continue to see more of that transition to an asset light model, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, let me if I can take this question in two, because I think part of it is kind of, what's the key drivers of the turnaround? And then the other part is what's the role of what we have referred to as asset light growth as part of that. I think, a big part of our turnaround over the last 12 to 18 months has actually come from a much stronger commercial focus, really building consistency in our capability across our kind of network and a more disciplined approach to performance across the business. I think we're very clear on what drives sustainable profitability, and we have stayed focused on, I suppose, executing those basics very well. We have seen the biggest shift in our overall performance has been the improvement in store profitability. And I think George would have spoken to that before. And over the last year, our trading profit has improved significantly as we've really doubled down in some of these areas. And I suppose then kind of touching on your asset light question, yes, a move towards smaller format showrooms has been a driver in supporting that profitability, reducing complexity, improving those returns through a more sustainable estate model, alongside continued discipline across our cost base and the focus that I've just talked about around performance and capability in our store network. Together have improved the profitability of our stores. I think in terms of, the specific question around asset light, and is that continuing to be part of the plan moving forwards, we will continue to evolve our showroom approach in a way that supports that long-term profitable growth. We have seen really strong results, as I said, from those smaller formats, particularly high street locations, just getting that closer to customers and really enabling us to be more intimate and deliver that great experience in a more efficient space. But alongside smaller formats, partnerships will continue to play a key role in our growth. It really helps us, extend the Magnet experience into new markets in a way that's more flexible for us and more sustainable. and it still protects, the quality and service that our brand is known for. So you will see more to come in partnerships over the course of the next few years, as well as a focus around small store format showrooms. The key here is not to probably get hung up on, a number or how many, or is it going to be this, is it going to be that? We're going to get really focused on making sure we have the right formats in the right places. That sustainable growth is really important for us. And we want to continue to invest in our offer, stay competitive and sustainably grow profitability over the long term.
Which is interesting to hear you say that, because my next question was going to be about what numbers of showrooms explicitly you were looking at over the next couple of years. So from the sounds of things, you don't really want to put a specific number on it.
Yeah. And look, I think the honest answer really is what you can expect from us is to see us be quite selective, rather than working towards a specific store number. It is about having those right showrooms in the right locations. We are testing different formats at the minute, and whether that's concession formats within builders merchant partners like Selco, whether that's franchisees. So, we will learn and evolve, and it will be about the right formats in the right places, and ultimately those delivering strong returns for us and long-term value.
But it does sound like the word I think you just used there was considered. And it's really encouraging to see that you've got a very clear focus on what to have done over the last couple of years. And you've actually managed to pull it off, which is really great to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the market's going to continue to be tough. So we have to remain focused on the big levers, what's really going to make the difference, and double down on those things that we really know and can see working already.
Magnet's turnaround has been really well documented, and it's great that you're in a position where you are now. But obviously now the future is totally different, because after the acquisition by Alteri Partners, the world's your oyster, really, isn't it? So do you have any major changes planned sort of under this new sense of ownership, or can we expect to see more of that plan over the last couple of years continuing?
Yeah, and I mean, look, our story here is very much a story of continuity, but continuity with what I would say greater focus. Alteri are backing the plan, we're already delivering because they can see it's working. And I suppose what this gives us is more focus and flexibility as a standalone UK business, with the right backing to build on what's already delivering progress. It also means, we can make decisions faster. We can make decisions that are right for Magnet and right for our UK business in our market, with our customers and our colleagues in mind. And for, customers, colleagues, partners, suppliers, it's very much business as usual. Our products, our showroom formats, our priorities, they remain the same as we move through this transition and into the next chapter, really, for our business.
I guess it's interesting as well, because under Nobia, their attention was focused not just on the UK, but also on their Nordic region, which at times performed totally differently to the UK. Sometimes it was up, sometimes it was down. And I suppose it allows you now to be a lot more agile, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Look, Nobia helped us lay strong foundations, during a very tough period in the market, as we've all witnessed. And, we are incredibly grateful for the support and the stability that they have provided, and particularly, over the last kind of 5 years. But for us, having dedicated UK ownership does now give us that greater focus, as I said, and, that backing and decision-making that's fully aligned to our priorities here in the UK. Absolutely means we can move faster. It means we can be more agile and make decisions that are right for us. And, you made a nod towards it there, but the Nordic market is quite different to the UK, and that's quite important in this journey.
So looking a bit more to the future, I know that in a lot of the news around what Magnet's doing, you've mentioned a lot about a 3-year plan for the business. Obviously, it sounds like it's going to be more of the same recovery and improvement and boosting. But what is sort of the ideal end result for you? Because identifying 3 years as that time frame, what would you like to see at the end of that 3 years? Like, what would success for all this look like for you?
Yeah, and I suppose we can talk about it as a year, we can talk about it as 2 years, 3 years, however long it's a number. What is important for us is profitable and sustainable growth. It builds directly on the progress the business has already made, which you and I both talked about today. And, George talked a lot about that last year. We are continuing to lean into what's working in the market and focusing on the areas where we can deliver most, I suppose, for our customers and our partners. And, a key area here, making sure our showroom formats deliver strong customer experiences, we've talked about. We're really encouraged, again, by the performance in some of our new stores that we've laid down, those new smaller format stores. And we will continue to evolve our estate, whether it's through partnerships or smaller format showrooms that we lay down. We must and will remain focused on efficiencies and operational strength, particularly in our supply chain and our wider cost base, so we can keep investing, where it really, really counts. And, growth remains central to our plans. Ultimately, we want to sell and supply more kitchens, whether that's stronger lead generation, better conversion, a clearer proposition across our retail trade, B2B channels, whether that's B2B partnerships and making more of those. In our Gower business, really continuing to demonstrate we're leading specialist kitchen provider through that expertise, and outstanding service and quality. And so, all of that will be where our focus really is over the coming years. And as I said, probably right at the start, the investment in our people is going to be key. Last year, we introduced a new leadership structure across our store estate. Probably one of the biggest investments we've made in strengthening store leadership in several years. And this year, to support them, we are launching a new leadership development program across the business. So really back to that, focused on building that talent, that capability, and ultimately progression from within the business. And I think you ask kind of, what does success look like at the end of 3 years or 2 years or whatever? It's a business delivering sustainable profitability, performing strongly across all parts of our business with a really clear proposition and confidence that, we can deliver consistently for all of our customers at scale. And that is, for us, what success looks like.
Yeah, and I imagine that's not unique to Magnet either, is it? It's probably any of the huge and even the smaller independent kitchen stores up and down the country. That's all anyone really can hope for right now. And if you're able to claw that back, then that's a win. But if you're able to look that far in the future, like you said, be it 1 year or 2 years or 20 years, being able to put that plan in place and then deliver getting there clearly shows that the Magnet is doing something right at this point.
Absolutely. And it's remaining really, really focused on, again, what we know and can see is working in the market.
Touching on that point, something that the market has sort of exploded with in the past couple of years, I would say, is franchising. And I know that Magnet has also sort of thrown their hat into the ring, or they did a couple of years ago when they announced they wanted to go into the franchise market themselves and were looking to do it sort of in 2024 or 2025, I think. And then when I spoke to George last year, he said, given everything going on at Magnet, which is totally understandable, it wasn't quite ready to be rolled out nationally just yet, but you sort of still had some fingers in that pie and had a couple of, I think it was 1 or 2 test stores, he said at the time. So are we going to see sort of that franchise rolling out anymore?
Yeah, and I suppose there's a question there around franchise, but I would probably elevate us up a little bit to partnerships, because partnerships do and have always played a really important role in Magnet's story. I don't know whether you're aware, but we've worked with Andersons for nearly 30 years to give us that really strong presence across the northwest and Scotland. We've had a great partnership with Normans in Jersey, where we've supported them in many social housing projects, but also more recently have helped them bring a new Magnet showroom to the market in Jersey. Those relationships are great examples of kind of how strong local partnerships with Magnet's national scale, national expertise and brand can really create the magic. I suppose in terms of franchising specifically, we have seen really positive progress with the partnership that we established so far. We've been encouraged from what we've seen, and we're learning from those early steps. For us, it's important that we grow in a sustainable way. And I know I've said that a few times already. That means testing, learning, making sure we've got it right, the right support, the right proposition in place before we scale up too quickly. And I think our priority right now, and still huge opportunity, is to continue to build the momentum in our core business and maximise performance across our existing estate. So I suppose looking ahead, we see franchising as one of several partnership opportunities for Magnet. We do have further partnership opportunities in the pipeline, which I'm sure, we will come back and talk more about when we're ready. And we will continue to evolve our approach in a way that, again, adds value for our customers, supports the brand and fits into the wider growth plans, be it, franchising, be it concessions in partnerships with builders, merchants, all of the above. We see all of those routes as great opportunities to grow and get, our Magnet brand out there more.
I'm not surprised to hear you again use the word consistency, because I'd say if there was a theme to everything going on with Magnet at this point and over the last couple of years, it is that consistency. And I'd have been concerned if out of nowhere you've gone, yes, we have got plans for 40 franchise stores this year, because that's not really in line with what Magnet's been doing. And I know that some people jumping headfirst into that market, that does sound like what they're trying to do. As an outside observer, you sit back and look at that and go, how on earth is that going to work, especially in today's market? So I'm not surprised to hear you say, we're still trialing that out and we're going to expand in a considered way.
And it's the growth potential from within, as well as the growth potential through, new models. And there's still lots for us to go at in terms of growth potential from within.
Magnet is one of the key national players, but in a way it's always been positioned ever so slightly differently. But I think a lot of people still sort of dismiss it as, and it's people see it as an awful term in a way, as one of the sheds. But what sort of role do you think Magnet can play in the wider kitchen community? I think especially as we're looking at things like a shortage of installers and not really being nationally recognised training programmes and things like that. Do you think Magnet could sort of play a role in the future of the sector in that way?
Yeah, look, I do understand the perception and why that may be, but I would challenge it. Of course I would. I mean, Magnet isn't a generalist DIY retailer. We are a specialist in this sector, a specialist kitchen provider. And we have been operating, as I said, in this market for over a century. We've got that national scale. We've got the deep expertise. We have a real opportunity to play a leading role, I do believe, in supporting the wider kitchen sector. For me, it is about raising standards in areas, that matter most, investing in skills and training, as you say, supporting consistently high quality products, installation and service, and building strong collaborative partnerships with suppliers to really support the sector. It includes the kind of wider responsibilities, I suppose, that we all share as an industry, sustainability, responsible sourcing, through to the role we can all play in supporting the communities that we operate in. We have already built some strong partnerships in this space, so including the Mears Foundation and their mission to improve lives of vulnerable people across the UK. And we are actively looking at how we strengthen our wider sustainability and social impact work over the next year. So I'd be happy, very happy, George, to come back and talk more about that separately as we develop those plans further. And I suppose yes, I do think there's an important role for Magnet in being part of that wider industry conversation on shared challenges, whether that's through closer links to industry bodies, shared work on skills, simply being a constructive voice on the future of the sector, and hopefully maybe that perception might start to change over the next couple of years.
And again, we could sit here for hours and hours chatting about the challenges that the industry faces. Magnet is not the only kitchen company in the UK, obviously, and everyone has a part to play. So it is really encouraging hearing that you have somehow managed to carve out time to think about the wider industry and your part in it as well.
It's just so important. I think we are real believers that ultimately the kitchen industry is at its best when we all focus on what builds that long-term trust with customers, quality, service and doing things the right way.
The thing that we hear a lot from independent retailers about the national companies like Magnet is they get sort of irked by the fact that every time they drive past a Magnet or a Wren store, there always seems to be some 40% sale off ends this January or something like that. I mean, it sort of drives a lot of criticism from independents. I'm not sure whether the wider general public is that aware of it, but do you think that undermines credibility in the market in any way, or does it genuinely drive sales? Because I imagine there must be some reason why people do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a topic that's quite close to my heart. It is true that the market has conditioned customers to expect deals, promotions, to play a role really in helping make that decision on big ticket purchases like kitchens. It's very true. But here at Magnet, we are very thoughtful about how we approach this. So as I said earlier, our focus on value for money, clarity and trust is really important, and not discounting for the sake of it. We recognise that it is a balancing act. And, earlier I sort of spoke about how it's not about us targeting share from specific competitors because of the breadth of the business. And that's true. It is a balancing act. Our customers do shop in different ways. You've got those that are really promotionally sensitive. Internally, we call them the savvy deal maximizers, and others who are more value led. They are deal aware, but not necessarily deal driven. And so I suppose for us, our strategy has been around having a really clear pricing structure, making sure the offers we run are meaningful and transparent and easy for customers to understand. And we have recently taken some steps to address some of that and ensure credibility in both our list prices and a real better balance, I suppose, between everyday value and promotional activity. We are really conscious of protecting the credibility of Magnet's brand. We don't want promotions to become a substitute for what really matters. It's great design, it's great quality, it's great service. So you will continue to see us compete strongly, but always in a way that supports the long-term strength of the brand.
Brilliant. Well, it's been really good to chat with you today about how, Magnet's faring, but we all know that the market hasn't been as healthy as perhaps it was about 10 years ago. Do you see, now that we're coming into the quarter way mark of 2026, do you think that the industry is going to see a genuine recovery this year?
Well, so the market has definitely been very challenging over the last couple of years, and I don't think anybody would probably sit here in my position or, wherever today and say it's back to normal. Yeah, we're still very much seeing some kind of unevenness in demand across the sectors. But that said, there are signs of resilience, and most industry forecasts do point to a more stable environment in 2026, with the potential for gradual, I think, improvement as the year progresses. We definitely see that underlying consumer trend of that improve, not move. Even when people are cautious, kitchens do still remain the most important part of the home and home investment when they do decide to spend. And that's really key. We are also starting now to annualise some of the disruption the market's experienced over the last year, particularly in the new build housing cycle. So I suppose the market is beginning to find its new baseline. So I wouldn't describe 2026 as a sudden recovery year, but we are hopeful of continued stabilisation, definitely with the potential for a stronger second half if consumer confidence continues to improve and the housing market starts to see further support.
Well, look, I could chat with you about this for hours because, like I said earlier on, it's been really interesting following Magnet's story with everything that's been going on. So it is really good to hear that Magnet is back on much more even footing, as a lot of the market is now. And it's been brilliant to follow that over the last couple of years. So thank you so much for making time to talk with me today.
Thank you, George, for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
No, likewise. And I hope to speak to you again soon.